Welcome to the Real Estate Investor Summit podcast. I am obviously not Mitch Stephen, but this is absolutely the episode that you want to watch, that you want to listen to if you're interested in growing and scaling and building your business. So first, let me introduce myself and who I actually am. I'm Stephen Woessner, and I own and run a company called Predictive ROI, and I'm the host of the top-rated Onward Nation podcast. And if you've been an avid follower of Mitch's for a while, you may recognize my voice as being his guest for episode 67. But because I'm an avid fan of Mitch Stephen, he's given me this very, very unique opportunity to actually turn the microphone on him and put him in the spotlight like he does with his incredible guests several times a week. So I have this really, really wonderful opportunity to pull some of the wisdom and insights and thought leadership out of Mitch and share that through to you, which will be a completely different perspective and lens than what you normally hear him do. So this is going to sound a little bit weird to you. Welcome, Mitch, to the Real Estate Investor Summit podcast, my friend.
Thank you very much for having me. Nice set you have. I got to say, you have some very
do you
good
like
taste.
it? Yeah.
It's very, very nice. I like, I do something very similar.
So you like what I've done with the place?
I like what you've done with it.
Well, so all joking aside, one of the things that is so attractive to you or to your followers and community about you, and one of the things that I really admire about you too, is, and it sounds so cliche to say how much you care, but I think that the way that you approach your interviews, the way that you approach serving your community really is quite distinctive and remarkable. I know that because you and I spend so much time outside of this type of context together. So I've really gotten to know you as a friend and as an expert is what you are. But why is that financial freedom? Why is that so important to you to help people achieve in their own life, just like you have done in yours?
I think that because that's the only way that you can really become yourself is you've got to get free from a lot of different chains. Mm-hmm. Most of us, if we're responsible, working at least 2,600 hours a year, that's 2,600 hours and an anchor keeping you in one place that without having to be at that one place 2,600 hours a year, we could go find out where we're really supposed to be, what we're really supposed to be doing. And that might be making a million into 10 million, or that might be making a million and then calling it fine on the financial side and going out and building churches in some faraway country, or providing water, or all kinds of different things. Who knows who you might be if you didn't have to worry about a paycheck every month.
So when was that point for you? Like, when was that, if you want to describe it as an aha moment, like when was that point for you when you knew that there was something bigger to pursue?
I think I heard a definition of financial freedom that said, financial freedom happens when your wants and needs are exceeded by your passive income, is what it said. I later changed it to cash flow because I don't really believe in passivity, but that was the first time in my life I thought financial freedom was possible for me, because I have a high school education. I had a lot of limiting beliefs. Financial freedom happens when your wants and needs are exceeded by your passive income. I only needed $4,500 a month at the time to get that done. And I thought, well, that's not rich, but apparently you can be financially free, and rich doesn't have anything to do with it. And then I came to the conclusion that if I was going to be rich, and if that's what I wanted to be, it would probably happen after I became financially free, because I'd have 2,600 hours a year to give to me and figure out where I belong. And that's what I did. It took me about 6 months to get financially free. And then I started hanging around people that I wanted to be like, or that I wanted my life to be like, or that I thought I wanted my life to be like. And then after further inspection and hanging around with them, I was like, I don't want that at all. And then so I learned to be who I wanted to be. And that's the reason why. So what drives me is I think that everyone deserves or should experience the chance to be what they should be or what they could be. And a lot of people don't get that chance because they're tied to a job and they can't find financial freedom.
You know, you used such a great word there too a few minutes ago when you mentioned passive. And then you took that further by mentioning 6 months. And that really gives us kind of a lens or a view into your mindset. That once you establish that bogey number, that $4,500, not being passive and deciding what it was that you were going to do, like it took you 6 months to get there. And
because I didn't have to focus on anything else. It was like this stupid, that $4,500, really? That's all I need out of this world to be financially free? I'd never thought about it like that. $4,500 in the greatest country in the world? And then, of course, even then it seemed a little big to me because I was a very small-minded person at the time. I cut it down to $3,500 in the name of getting there faster. So there's some things that I could scuttle, $1,000 of things I could scuttle so I could lower the bar. Not because I was lowering the bar of my life expectations or my dreams. I was just lowering the bar so I could get free faster because my freedom was more important than these handful of things that I was paying for that were frivolous.
Okay. And so you accomplished the $3,500 number, the $4,500 number. And then the momentum just continued, right? So what were some of the ways or early on strategies? And these are some things that you still teach today, right? I mean, so what were some of those things that really helped you start to gain that traction?
Well, I mean, I quit in March of 1996. I quit my job. I bought 45 houses between March and the end of the year.
In 1996?
In 1996.
And would you describe that as like your first year or maybe second year of doing this?
Well, I've been working like 6 to 8 months, trying to get financially free, doing it part-time.
Okay.
And that's how I got free when I jumped off and I was free, I just ramped up what I was doing part-time.
So once you became full-time in that first 12-month period of being full-time doing this, 45 houses.
No, from March to the end of the year.
Holy bucket. So in 9 months-ish, 45 houses.
Mm-hmm. I did enough part-time to get $3,500 a month coming in. And then that was what my job made me, more or less. And I jumped off full-time to say, okay, what can I do if I do this 12, 14, 16 hours a day? And when I say 14, 16, maybe even 18 hours a day, because I was petrified. I quit my job. I had a year's worth of salary in the bank, and I thought, I can find I was looking for a job when I found this one. This job's nothing special. I can find another one. So I really don't have anything to lose with this job. And I'm going to see what I can do in a year. So I quit in March, and by the end of 1996, 9 months, I had done 45 houses, and I didn't need a job anymore, Steve. I didn't need a job. So
here's what's remarkable about this. And you hear Mitch talk about this often on his show, whether that's mindset, consistency, staying in your lane, and the fact that he obviously did that for a very compressed period of time in order to enjoy that freedom. But he didn't stop there. That was year one of a 22-year journey of now 1,500 houses later, right?
1,500 houses and a lot of experiences within those houses. I won't say that I've experienced everything positive that there is to experience, because there's always another level, and I won't say that I've experienced everything negative, but I have experienced 99.9, for the realm that I'm in. I've been through the gauntlet, and part of that process and part of the comfort of where I live now is I don't have to make those mistakes anymore because I lived them, and when you live things, that's when you learn them. I'm not going to say I learn it fast. I'm the guy that has to touch the burner twice.
That is indeed hot.
I wonder if it does it with that. Oh, yeah, it does it with both. You shouldn't touch it with either hand, guys. It's going to burn the hell out of you. So I'm not this.
It's A/B testing.
I'm not the sharpest pencil in the drawer, man. I'm not the sharpest pencil. I learned through pain. I'll tell you, I learned through pain. Pain is my best teacher. But eventually you get it, and sometimes, we forget pain God made us so that we forget pain. Otherwise, no woman in the world would ever have more than one baby, right? Mm-hmm. So somewhere that pain dissipates. Well, it happens in real estate too. You kind of forget why you weren't doing this, and then you start doing it again, and then you get some more pain and go, oh yeah, I remember now.
Well, it's like the other day when you and I were hanging out and just kind of sharing lessons and so forth, and you said that there's about an $850,000 tuition bill that you have paid over the last 22 years. right?
Yeah.
And whether that's through mistakes or maybe a deal that went in a different direction than what you're
mistakes.
hoping.
You can stop at mistakes. They're mistakes.
But $850,000 is what you've invested in your education over the period of time. And because there's no such thing as a business owner who hasn't paid a hefty amount of tuition, right?
You either paid it, well, it's probably, that's only what I can recall off the top of my head, the easy ones, the ones that you can add up like 6 or 7 or 8, 10 mistakes. They add up to $850,000. The mistakes could be well in the millions, but the ones that could have really hurt me, I like to joke around. People have heard me say it probably 1,000 times, but at the risk of being redundant, I like to tell you when I graduated from La Calle, which in Spanish means, La Calle means the street. It's the most expensive university on the planet. It has no real ending point, and it'll just keep charging you and charging you and charging you until you've paid $850 million. But you can pay for your education like college, which is probably though the most generic. If you're not going to be a doctor or a lawyer, but even then, once you get your doctorate or you get your license for the bar, you're still going to have to mentor up to next to some attorney in an office that really knows how litigation works. Because what happened in school, that's not how it works. The way they played the judge in the front of the classroom is not how the judge is in the real room in your state. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we talked about that last night at dinner.
Yeah. So there's still another level to go. So it's kind of like vocational. Remember when they had vocation programs in high school? Those were great for certain kids, who knew or were not going to go down a certain path. When we knew who those kids were, and a lot of times those kids knew who they were. Sometimes the kids didn't know. But once you figure out that you really don't want to be a doctor or lawyer, maybe you should just take like that vocation attitude and pick the topic that really turns you on or whatever your passion is, and just immerse yourself in that and the ways to make business in that path and create your own vocational course.
And that's, again, another thing that I have admired about you from a distance. Well, I shouldn't say a distance because we spent so much time together, that you are such, what's the word that I'm looking for? Like, you're a lifelong student. And some people I think say, oh, I read a lot of books. Like, I've seen your bookshelves, like, and I know the mastermind groups, and I know the seminars and the workshops and all these different things. You're constantly trying to get better. And so when I think about this $850,000, like, I know that that's not a made up number. I see how aggressively you pursue education and how much that means to you.
Well, can I be completely transparent?
Sure.
Because I buy a lot of books. I'm very remiss in reading them. I'm not a good reader. They're on my shelves. I might read. So one of the reasons I got to this podcast thing was because I realized that I'm buying all these books and I'm not consuming them, or I'm consuming 25% of them, and then my ADD kicks in and I don't finish. So I said I'm going to have to learn a different way. And so I would just call the guy that wrote the book, and I'd sit him down there, and I talked to him, and now I was really engaged, and I would talk to him for 45 minutes or an hour, and I would get what I was really interested in, not have to go through all that fluff. Yeah. And I started the podcast, honestly, I didn't start it for money, I didn't start it for fame, I didn't start it for anything. I started it so that I could get educated. If I go to a guy who's CEO of a company and says, can I take you to lunch and rake your brain? He's like, I don't got time for you, punk. If I say, could you come on would you be interested in letting me interview you on my podcast? He's like, sure, call my secretary and we'll get a time. And the questions are all the same. And I get to meet with people that I never get to meet with. I get, and a lot of people I could meet with if I just knew, but I start getting referrals. I start getting down the road. This podcast was for me to grow. Really. And along the way, I'm very happy to say, I'm happy to get a whole bunch of people to grow at the same time if they want to plug in and grow. But if no one was in this audience, I'm still going to do this and interview the people because I want to grow.
Okay. So that squarely addresses an objection that I hear from business owners all the time. Oh, Stephen, I couldn't have my own show. I'm starting from nothing. I'm starting from scratch. No one's going to say yes. No one's going to be on my show. But yet, you courageously, introduce and invite them on a show, and they said yes. And so were you surprised by that?
Well, first of all, I had no expectations. I've been told no by a lot of people about a lot of things. Rejection is I'm no stranger to rejection. Actually, none of us are a stranger to rejection because we all get rejected more than we get accepted. If you just look at everything in life, everything, there's more rejection than there is exception. So you just got to learn how to handle it, because if you're going to get that much of it, let's learn where to put it. I put it in all right, got that over there, stepping stone or building block or learning experience. Didn't work out right, but okay. But I'm not beating myself up over it. And that took a little while to learn. But so I started this thing with no expectations. I had zero expectations, because one of the ways you deal with rejection is like, if you don't have any expectation and it doesn't work out, they go, okay, well, hey, I wasn't expecting very much. So it worked out perfect. So every time I got some success, it was like, hey, it's better than I thought.
Sure.
Or, hey, it's moving forward. That's a step in the right direction. I kept going. So it didn't take very long, though. What I find amazing is, you don't get for what you don't ask for. So by forming a podcast, I was kind of asking for an audience. And I shouldn't have been surprised when someone showed up, because it's a big world out there. It's a huge world. There's someone for everybody. Look, even I found a wife. I found someone who would live with me and for 27 years, okay? There's someone for everybody. So to think that someone wouldn't follow me into a podcast is ridiculous. Now, it might have only been 10 people, or it might have only been 10,000 people, but whatever it was, someone's going to follow me into this podcast. And I was just going to explore it. And it ended up changing everything.
Okay, so let's talk about a couple of those, because here again, so your audience probably knows this, but for those of you who don't, he has really truly built a nation of true fans, and I think a lot of that comes from just your MO, that how you like to serve and how you truly care about each of your listeners and your students and so forth, to the point where, several years ago, he decided to let people know when he was going to be vacationing to Mexico. I love it when I cracked up when you told me this story, that the first year, 12 people showed up. Last year when he did that, and the people who go, they're paying their own expenses. You're not there to sell anything. This is not a seminar.
No stage show, there's no circus.
If you just want to chat about real estate poolside with a margarita in your hand, show up in Mexico, right? 100 people showed up last year.
With me. It's the greatest thing in the world, because
who does that? I mean, come on.
Well, people were going like, you did what? And I says, I'm inviting people to go on vacation with me. They said, who? I said, anybody. They said, anybody? I said, what if someone you don't like shows up? I said, I won't talk to them. It's never happened, because everyone's very nice, but you know what I mean? And they're very respectful. I told them, I don't know what time I'm getting up. I don't know what time I'm going to bed. I don't know if I'm eating at the Italian restaurant or the sushi restaurant. I don't know, but I'll be there for a week. If you want to come, I'm sure we'll meet.
Right. And that's an incredible litmus test of community. And it's a real testament to this connection, whether it's from afar and people have been listening to you for 3 years and they don't know you personally, but want to, and or they do know you personally, but the fact that you can say, this is when I'm going, and 100 people show up is incredible.
And it wasn't about sales, because there was no seminar. Because my one of my pitch on the thing was, if you think that I'm going to get up there and we're all going to go to a ballroom and sit there and look out a plate glass window at this white sand and this blue ocean, you're crazy. I'm not going to paradise to sit in a conference room. I'm not. So I'm going to be there, and you can come. And I'm not selling anything. And I didn't try to sell anything. Guess what happened?
You sold some stuff, but not because you tried.
I made friends, I made connections, and people wanted to team up and get me on their team.
Right.
It was a natural thing.
Right.
I didn't even think that would happen.
Right.
But when you start forming real relationships with real people, and not just talking about business, well, we were talking about everything, from your favorite basketball team all the way to whatever. Because we're in a pool for 5 days, or on the beach, or playing volleyball, or deep sea. I went deep sea fishing one time with a group. So I just put out a text. We get everyone on WhatsApp, and we'd send out a text. Everyone could communicate, so you could find out who had common interests. And I just said, I'm going to go deep sea fishing. Who wants to go? I got 7 spaces on the boat. Well, we ended up having to get 3 boats. Yeah.
But so that's a powerful litmus test to how you serve your community. But then also how you're consistent. Like here again, a story from dinner the other night when you're telling me about this gentleman in, I think, Tennessee, who recently got in touch with you because he's listened to your shows and he admires your consistency and your generosity and all of the social proof that goes along with 22 years.
Yeah, but see, I don't want the audience to make the same mistake I made. He said, I admire your consistency. I thought, because I put out 2 shows a week. come to find out that wasn't the consistency he was listening for. So I said, oh, yeah, I put out about 2 shows a week. He said, that's not the consistency I'm talking about. I said, well, what are you talking about, consistency? He said, over 150 interviews I've listened to, you don't ever get off the high road. Your integrity is always the same. If someone asks you about something that's shady, you always pull them back over and say no. Says you're very consistent in that. You got to do it right, and you got to protect everybody in the deal. Everybody, the lender, the buyer, everybody's got to get what they pay for or get what they think they're going to get out of this deal. And that's what impressed him. He said, I don't think a person that was not true that way, that was faking it, could fake it for 150 episodes.
Wow.
That it would come out somewhere, that I would catch it, that he would make the mistake if they were like a con or they were trying to manipulate. He says, when someone's that consistent all the time, I feel like I know you, I feel like you're consistent. He said, I'd like to talk to you about loan and money. And then the guy eventually asked me 20 questions. I gave him some references. He called my references and he says, I'm in for $1 million. I'm like, holy crap, this podcast. How do you measure? How do you measure that? Like I've said before, remember that one time I told you, I said, yep. You asked me, how much money do you think you've made from the podcast? I said, I'm not really sure because it comes in all different forms. And I can tell you some really hard numbers that I know for sure. But I don't know exactly how much because of the way that it happens. Like the guy loans me $1 million. That doesn't mean I made $1 million. It means he loaned me $1 million. The question is, when I go spend that $1 million and start paying him back, how much do those properties make me? Maybe $1 million by themselves, or $500,000 just that one loan, or just that one man facilitating me with that one amount of money could be worth $500,000 the first year, and then next year if he keeps it out with me, because I'll pay him back and he'll get it back to me, and I'll pay him back and he'll give it back to me. So I told you, I'm not sure I could put my hand on a Bible and tell you that I have not made $1 million from this podcast. I'm not sure I could do that.
So thank you for breaking that piece down, but let's actually keep digging a little bit deeper there and loop back to something you said maybe 5-6 minutes ago about how having the podcast has been a game changer for your business. But I know there have been other things too that have been game changers for your business, whether that's writing books, whether that's a podcast, like all in this whole thought leadership expertise kind of category, right?
Well, probably what led me to do the podcast was the first experience of writing a book where I had zero expectations. Actually, I didn't even know that I was writing a book. I was venting through grief. I had a tragedy happen and I was cataloging. I didn't know that's what I was doing, but later on, my investors who happened to be doctors were explaining to me that what I'd done was I had vented my grief through writing, and I wrote thousands of pages to get to that 400 pages book. And then I saw, that book took on a life of its own. It took me to places that I never would have dreamt to go. I was starting to communicate with people all over the nation. Even on a modest scale, it was eye-opening to me. It was stunning. People would send me letters saying they want to invest with me because I read my book. They had never met me personally. I never talked to them on the phone. Could you please call me? I want to invest with you. And I thought, oh my God, what just happened? So then after that experience, and that had been a long time, like that first book came out in 2008. So I didn't start this podcast till like 3 years ago, so 2015. So I had 7 years of experience with this book, and then came out with another couple of books because I was enthralled with the concept of the credibility and the reach of going out in the public with that. And so then when the idea for the podcast came up to try to expand an audience, I was thinking, how can I expand my audience? People kept saying, you need to get on YouTube or you need to whatever. And I thought, what scared me was all the technical stuff. But what, to your question, was I jumped because I saw what a little book would do. I figured it'd be somewhere along the same lines in another stream, and it would open up things wider. And why? One is, as I was really, in both cases, they're not money driven. They're not money driven. One was, obviously, I was trying to help myself get over a tragedy. But next, I had a lot of people want to talk to me about that tragedy and how they could get over it too. So I was starting to help people. So I started to see how these venues, you could use them to help people. And then I also started to see that if you helped enough people, the money would just it would filter its way in. And it'd be very, very slow at first, but you'd look up one day and go, holy cow, I'm not even really trying to do this, trying to make money, and it can't hardly stop it from making money. You know, I did do things to put myself on the road to make money. Like you can't make money if you didn't have a product or you didn't have a service. Or you didn't. I mean, I set it up so that when I saw it, I started, what would help these people the most? What are the products I know that can help them the most? What would fit in with these people? How can I shortcut where they need to get to and get what they need to help them? So I did start to pick up the products so that I had a chance to get paid, but I wasn't pushing it. Mm-hmm. If you bought something, it's because you wanted it. If you bought it, and I got a lot of thank yous. People would buy the product and thank me, and I'd get paid a little bit from the product, or it would be my product and I get paid all. But I didn't worry about the money. I worried about the helping the people. You help people really good and you help enough people, I saw that it translates into a decent living, if not a great living.
One of the things that I enjoy is having this opportunity to be kind of like a fly on the wall. Well, more, I guess, just kind of standing in the room when you're having a conversation with either another investor who doesn't have a podcast or an investor who does, but not making any money because they're just going about it the wrong way. And then you tell a little bit about your story and how it's grown over time and what you've generated. And the response is always the same. It's, I'm sorry, what? How did you do that?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. So I have this wonderful woman in my life is my publicist named Julie Houston and Catherine Connor, and they helped me. But Julie started out, her key job was to just find someone for me to interview or someone to interview me. And so I had a lot of people that a lot of times people were interviewing me. Well, always at the end of the podcast, I would ask them, because I was interested, like, how are you monetizing your podcast? And like over and over and over again, they go, "Oh, I'm not. I just do this as a community service, or I just do this because I like it, or I do this for goodwill." And I thought, you don't have anything for sale, or you're not selling any. You're not. And this happened over and over and over and over again. And here I am, not even trying to sell anything, but just like getting the basic infrastructure. Because like if you don't put yourself in the middle of the road, you can't get hit by the money truck. You know, if you're standing on a pasture somewhere, the money truck just doesn't hit you because the money truck's on the road. So I said, well, let me move some products over into the road. You know what I mean? Let me go stand in the middle of the road so at least I get a chance to get hit by the truck. And so I moved, and so I was making this money. So I called Stephen, who's Predictive ROI, which is responsible for a huge part of the success of my podcast, because I'm not technical. I don't know anything about SEO. I don't know about getting on iTunes. I don't know about getting on Alexa. I don't know about any of this stuff. I don't know about the distribution. This segment's not long enough for me to describe all the things I don't know. But so I was telling him, I says, I can't believe how many people are not monetizing. At the same time, Steven's looking at me because he's used to monetizing through traditional means or is a little bit more in the paid sponsor, the paid airtime, the paid commercial time, or something like that. And I didn't have any paid anybody for airtime. I was just, if I was talking to a guy that was an expert at selling apartments and he had an apartment selling course, at the end they'd say, if you want to learn more about buying apartments and more about, this guy, go over to this link and you can learn all you want to about him. That was as strong as the sales got. Everything else before that, all through, was content. So people would go over there if they were interested in that subject. They might buy his course. And then I got paid. Well, I was telling him, I started sending Stephen my financials. I says, wow, look at how much my podcast made this month.
I'm like, holy cow.
I was like, how are you doing that? I said, I don't know, really. I mean, I just moved myself over in the road to be able to collect a check if someone happened to buy something. So I'm talking to all these people in these podcasts, and they're saying, I don't monetize. I said, so it's really not hard. Who are you talking to? So they show me this list of the people talking to. I say, well, if you can help this guy sell this, I'm sure he's willing to pay something. If you can help this guy get customers and buy that, I'm sure he would send you a little check, nothing big, no deal killer, and it's not even going to be tacked onto your customers or your listeners' side. It's going to come off the seller's side.
Right.
And then about 60% of the time, I can get a discount and get that product to my listener cheaper than they could get it through the regular avenues, because I ask for favors from my listeners. So they can get it cheaper through me, and then when I get paid, it doesn't even come out of their pocket, it comes out of the seller's pocket. So my listeners are really good with it. And I'm still astonished. I get checks in my mailbox now every day. My wife loves the mailbox.
Mailbox money is a good thing.
Yeah, she's like, have you been to the mailbox today? No, have you been? No. We should go to the mailbox, see what's in there. We should go to the mailbox. Let's see what's in there. The biggest day of my life, though. I say the biggest day. There's a lot of a milestone in my life. Okay, let's put it like that. Keep things in perspective.
Okay.
A lot of things bigger than money and checks in the mail.
Yes.
A milestone in my life. My wife goes out of town for a week. I hear a knock on the door. It's the mailman. I have not been to my mailbox in 27 years because that's not what I do. It's not my job. That's my wife goes to the mailbox. And so when she was gone for a week, I didn't go to the mailbox because it never crossed my mind to go to the mailbox because I'd never been to the mailbox. And the mailman's standing there with this stack of mail, and he says, "Mr. Stephen, we can't get any more checks in your mailbox. You're going to have to get a bigger mailbox." I was like, I had two revelations. The first one was, I need a bigger friggin' mailbox. Hallelujah. I waited 22 years to hear these words. The second one was, how do you know those are checks? I mean, it kind of like, right away, it's like, it bothers me. The mailman said, we can't get enough checks. I said, how do you know these are all checks? Mm-hmm. He goes, oh, Mr. Stephen, your mailbox is famous down at the Starksville post office. I'm thinking, oh, that's not good. I said, so let me set the man straight here. I said, so you see all these checks? Let's fan them all out. Let's fan them. You see all these checks? I said, yeah. You see this one? This takes up half of them. This is the bill. This is the land payment, or this is the payment. But anyways. Now that I've messed that all up, where were we going?
Well, I don't think you messed that up at all. I think you added some good context. And
hey, I went down a rabbit hole and told my story. I'm sorry.
But I think it also illustrates how there are a number of different ways to monetize, generate revenue from your thought leadership. First, you got to be consistent, though. You got to be consistent over time, and not just 2 episodes a week, but consistent in the point of view, in the credibility, in the social proof over a substantial period of time. You've obviously done that. And then being helpful to your audience. And then that gives you an at-bat to monetize. But if you mess up those first 2, you never get the at-bat.
You're missing like the real important third one.
Which is what?
Because you've witnessed this, and when I tell you this, you're going to go, uh-huh.
Okay.
Not everyone was open to making money. It's like they had shut themselves off from making money.
No, that's fair.
They were saying to themselves, "Oh, I don't want my audience to think this is about money."
True.
Or if I make any money, then my podcast is going to be about making money, not helping people.
Right.
Which you can make money without being overtly salesy or even moderately salesy. I'm very unsalesy. Like I hardly. Here's a challenge. Why don't you go get some affiliate programs with some people? If you're a podcaster and you're not making any money on your podcast, just get some affiliate relationships with some people that you interview, set up in advance, and then go have a really in-depth interview that really helps your audience. Don't say anything, but at the end say, if you want to learn more, go to my show notes, and you'll be a lot of information there about this topic or this product. And try not to sell anything. I challenge you to have a really great interview, post up an affiliate link where you could make some money, and try like hell not to make any money, and I bet you can't do it. I bet you can't do it.
And that's what I love, because you're exactly right. Getting it still, I had to move into the middle of the road,
right? So I could get hit by the truck.
You did, but when my book Profitable Podcasting came out, was published about a year or so ago, and then you hit me up on social. You were probably one of the first people who bought a copy, which I'm grateful for, and you tagged me on social, and then we start talking more about this affiliate piece, which is not in the book. And my mind wasn't there. My mind was interview your best prospects as guests on your show. We call that the Trojan horse. And then you call me and say, wait a minute. No, I think that there's something else to bolt onto this. I'm like, oh my gosh, that is really awesome. And then over 8 or 9 months, you kind of picking at me of, hey, we need to be teaching this stuff. And now that's led to a course. I mean, you really opened my eyes.
Well, so Stephen started his course with just to get clients.
Yeah.
Really to get clients
right.
who wanted to do a podcast but didn't know how.
Right.
Okay, so he's not even trying to sell advertising or anything. I started mine to expand my audience. I wasn't into sales, but I did want to sell my coaching product or get more people inquiring about my coaching product and me as a human and as a valued team member in the expertise that I have. Neither one of us went into with the idea of making the money or making money from it, but we couldn't hardly stop it. It got to be like, wow, if I'll just do a couple of things, people are wanting to send me the money, but they can't send me the money. They can't keep track of it. I not have a system that's transparent where they can actually see all my customers, because if they could see my customers, they want to pay me and they've told me they want to pay me, but they can't see the customers that I drove to them. So I said, well, I just got to get this system where I can document the customers that go to them, which in my case was Infusionsoft, but there's other ones, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so I started running them through a system where they became exposed as this lead came from Mitch Stephen, and then they went on down the road to the store, and then if they bought something, the store was more than happy to pay me. And then then I started running advertisements on my show, which wasn't paid airtime. I just figured, I just took my highest paying affiliates, the ones that sent me the most checks, most commissions. I said, well, if that's the people that my audience connects with, then I'm going to make a commercial for them. I didn't ask permission from the company or anybody. I just made my own DJ endorsement. So I have 2 sponsors on my show. If you listen to my show, those people are not paying me for airtime. I'm just selling a lot of those people's product because my audience obviously connects with them. It's a value to them. It's helping them. One company pays me $830 per conversion. In 2.5 years, Stephen, I've converted 225 times for that company. Yeah. It's great for my customer. Yep. It's a lifesaver for my customer. For my listener. Okay? It's a lifesaver for them. And I'm supporting that business really well. And they're happy too. So everybody's happy, and I get paid for putting these 2 people. What I really think, I read the book, Outliers?
Mm-hmm. By Malcolm Gladwell. Yep.
Is it The Outliers? Mm-hmm. Did they talk about connectors? Mm-hmm. And okay, I'm a connector. I read that book and I said, I'm a connector. Yep. I'm Paul Revere. I can go out in the middle of the night and start screaming something, and the people that I got really happy with the last 3 weekends at the bar will believe what I'm saying, and the people over in the city council will believe what I'm saying too. I have friends of all different genres. I can go to the place where people say the lowlifes hang out, and I can go there and I can talk to those people, and I'm right at home. And then I can go to the fanciest, country club in town, and I can talk to those people. And that's one of the things people don't know. There was 2 Paul Reveres. There was 2 men sent out in 2 different directions. One guy, they just all went back to sleep and said, oh, there's that drunk again on the horse in the middle of the night screaming. The other one said, what is that in the middle of the night? Says, that's Paul Revere. He's saying, the redcoats are coming. He says, we better get out of bed and get our guns. So Paul Revere had this reputation, and so that's what we're trying to build, is reputation. Trying to help people as much as you can, but you're making a mistake if you don't set yourself up enough to get paid. Because my pay, who here would like to make $18,000 or an extra $10,000 or even an extra $5,000 for doing something you're going to do anyways?
Well, and going back to year 1 for you, it was $3,500. That would have been a game changer for you, right? And that's what set you on your path to financial freedom.
Yeah, $3,500 was all I needed. Actually, that's funny that you say that number, because about $3,500 a month was what I needed to support all my ambitions for the podcast. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So if I could just get enough coming in, I could afford to have, predictive ROI wouldn't even be a monetary issue for me, because the podcast that he was helping me build was really garnering the check that I had to pay. Right. But then it went back beyond that. And so then when it went beyond that, it's like, well, I can take, I only needed this much to cover the overhead, but now I'm making this much. So now I can take a little chunk of that, and I can start doing some advertising, or I can start doing some stuff to see if I can grow the audience. Well, right. We screwed around and made some mistakes like that, mostly me and my people. But then we figured out what worked. Yep. And then by then it was making this much. So we said, now that we know it works, let's take a chunk and put it there. And so then it just started to go like this. And all of it was done with the house money. You know what I mean? Like I was playing with the house's money. It gets a lot easier to try an advertising budget or try an advertising idea with the house's money.
Yeah, but it absolutely does, or absolutely is. But I think one of the reasons why you've also been super successful is because no matter what channel where you're sharing your expertise, it's not like expertise with a catch. Like you're fully transparent. You share the whole thing. And I think that's really interesting, because there are many, experts will give you maybe 4/5 of something, right?
No, I know the model. The model you're saying is, hey, give me this much money, and you go there to learn, but really it's just a pitch fest to get you to the bigger thing. And then when you get in that thing, they say, well, if you really want, the optimal level is like this, and we're going to give you the real secrets.
Well, okay, your bus tour is a great example.
Yeah.
Your bus tour is a great example. Like I heard somebody the other day ask you, why are you doing that? And if there was some sort of big pitch at the end or whatever, and you're like, no, I just want to have a bunch of people into San Antonio and teach them more about what I do. It's not some sort of veiled whatever. And I think that's really attractive to people.
Well, I charge the price for the bus, and I'll make a little bit of money on it after I pay my expenses and stuff. But people said, well, what are you selling? I says, I'm not selling anything while they're on there. They're going to get for what they paid for, which is they're going to get 2.5 days in town. We're going to get on a bus. I'm going to take them to a bunch of houses. I'm going to give them all the numbers on my houses, talk about where I found the house, how I sold the house, and all trials and tribulations during the period that I owned the house, so that they could get a real life feel in a real neighborhood where they could look around. I said, so I sold some tickets to that. They said, well, what else are you going to be selling? I said, you don't have to sell after that. If someone wants to engage with me further, they will find me. And I'm not talking anyone into or pressuring anyone into that. And that's the kind of customer I want. Where two willing people get together and they form a team and they decide on a price for a service. And that the service has the great potential to bring back more in than what the customer had to pay.
Exactly. And because I know that's your philosophy, that's why when you said, hey, what do you think about profitable podcasting for real estate investors? And I'm like, okay, you're saying there's an opportunity to like co-teach something with you. And you're like, yeah, I mean, couldn't we take that and we add some stuff to it? And could we co-teach that as a course? And I'm like, holy freaking bananas. That sounds awesome. Yes, let's do that.
Yeah. So we went back and forth for a long time, right? Because
8 months.
8 months. I kept talking to people, and they've been having podcasts for like 5 and 6 and 8 years, or however long it's been. However long it's been to have podcasts. People go back that far, and they're not making any money. They're not monetizing at all. And I couldn't believe how many people were not monetizing, or weren't even trying, or had no idea if they would just move a little bit more to the center of the road that they'd get hit by the money truck. So I kept pounding Steve. I kept going, man, with what you know and what I'm learning about this affiliate marketing and what you know about sponsorships, and I said, people don't know. And then I said, is there a course on this? Is anyone teaching this? Because I bet you there's not, because no one knows anything about it. No one's out there saying, hey, pay attention over here about this topic. So we both did research. We can't find anybody helping people to any degree that was worth anything. Well,
especially in your niche too.
Yeah.
In real estate.
And niching it down. But I think podcasts of all kinds can use this. There'd be very few podcasts that couldn't find an angle.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I've thought about it. I went on and looked at podcasts outside of my niche. Mm-hmm. I thought I could monetize that if that was my gig. I figured out how to monetize it, and it wasn't even my specialty. I figured out right where the monetization was. A lot of it's so simple that you just see right through it. It's not hard. I'll tell you again. I challenge you to get yourself set up right, to spend a little bit of time to get yourself set up right, and try not to sell anything. Just try not to. Like, do your best not to even mention it. I mean, you may have to mention it, but even if you don't mention it, you're going to sell it. You're going to get a check.
So I know that we're quickly running out of time on your own show. So if anybody who's watching this or listening to this now If they want to learn more about the course that you and I created, where can they find that on Real Estate Investor Summit?
Go to realestateinvestorsummit.com/monetize. And we're about to put the cherry on top of this course that we've done, if we haven't already done it by the time this comes out, and start to show people behind the curtain, like what we're doing to monetize. Just imagine, I mean, the check that I get for monetizing my podcast, a lot of people could quit their jobs. Some of them and their spouse could quit their job. I mean, I make a really decent living. I say really living. I make a living doing something else, but I mean, I make a really decent income from this podcasting thing, and it's really quite fun. I stay smart. I get to meet interesting people. I get to learn and make friends all over the country. I get to vacation with people. 1000houses.com/Mexico-2019. If you want to go on vacation with me, February. But thanks for doing this and turning the table on me and having a chance to talk about our course. And the other thing I really liked about this course is it's not national, it's global. There's people podcasting all over the world. How many podcasters are there in the world?
Oh my gosh, 486,000 at our last count.
See, he act like that was right off the top of his head. Then he comes up with 486,000. So he knows. He did the research. 486,000 people. I imagine some of them maybe are monetizing, but I bet you
the vast majority are not.
3/4 of them or more are not. And so we're going to tell you what we know about that. And hopefully it'll change your life too.
Well, so before we go, if you enjoy Mitch's full transparency, all of it out there, which my guess is you do, because that's why you're an avid fan of Mitch's, just as I am, then we look forward to seeing you as part of the course. But until then, thanks very much for giving me the opportunity to turn the tables on you too. It was a lot of fun.
Really,
thanks, my friend.
I'm not used to sitting on this side. Bye now.